Hello, and welcome back to the RamsTalkPodcast preview show. This week, we travel to Bramall Lane. First time, if you're trying to think back to when the last time Bramall Lane and Derby County encountered, was 2021. Now, that's going to be a fair while back. A lot of things have happened since then, but to talk it all through with me now, 2024 is Hal from the Sheff United Way. How are you, mate?
I've just been thinking back to that game. I was at that game, and you guys were going through it. I remember your fans were very stoic at the time, really vocal. I was very impressed. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Derby County, as you know, Callum. We've spoken about it before, and my brother-in-law, massive Rams fan, and that always makes things interesting when he and my sister have had this discussion, because she's obviously married somebody who doesn't support Sheffield United. What happens with the kids? And I am losing that battle as Uncle Hal does not have as much sway as, Dad.
Well, that's it. And we were talking previously where you think 2021 championship and you kind of set the scene and you go, like you said, Derby County are going through it at the time. In that game, a red card with our goalkeeper, a 1-0 win. Billy Sharp, who's always a favourite with Derby County fans. And then it goes 4 years on, and now we're back. And both clubs are in very, very different states now. And you kind of look at it and go, that's what football can be like. But just give Derby County fans who are listening, where are Sheffield United now? It's been a while since we've spoken to you, so you might have enlightened us with all the things that have happened off the pitch, on the pitch. Just give us a brief update of where you guys are.
It was a lovely sunny day as well, I seem to remember. Anyway, where are we? Well, we're in exactly the same position as Derby. We've got the exact same amount of points. So all this turmoil that both of us have been through, and we've ended up exactly the same 4 years on. And that's football. And that's why this game will actually be quite interesting. I don't know if it'd necessarily be an exciting game, because I think with two good sides coming together, which should actually either make one or two things. One, for a barnstormer, or what I actually think, a very cagey game, which will probably be decided by one goal. Sheffield United are in the midst of a takeover, which has been going on for months, and Rams fans know all about shady owners and dodgy takeovers. Now, we don't have a shady owner, but we have had dodgy owners, prospective owners in the past too, Henry Maurice and Dozy and Bozy. And I'm not saying that as like that's my opinion. I had no opinion on either of them. They've both since been investigated by like the FBI and SEC. So I'm going to stay out of that and just say that we're going through currently a different prospective takeover, and we'll see what happens. And I know nothing about that. And who knows, may have even happened by the time of the game. Probably not. It's been going on for that long. So that's where Sheffield United are, a state of turmoil, a little bit of flux, and really not knowing at the top of the ship who's in charge. That's behind the scenes. On the pitch, we're actually pretty good. We weren't able to recruit in all the areas, massive rebuild, but we ran out of cash to get another striker and a left winger. So we are without a left winger, and we're playing Gus Harmer, who's a very good player, but he's not a left winger, out on the left. He's right-footed. He constantly drifts in on that right. He's very good in the centre. And you'll see some exciting players that we've managed to accumulate, but it's a very different side from that one that you witnessed in the sun with Billy Sharp serenading you underneath the away end. Well, let's say the away end. It was underneath the Bramall Lane upper, wasn't it? So it was the upper, and then you guys were in the lower that time. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, if you think now Billy Sharp's at Doncaster, we're both in the Championship, very, very different sides. I mean, I've been looking at the last starting 11 you played against Hull in your win against them. And I mean, you say about striker, but we've got Keith and Moore. I mean,
but who do you recognise from that lineup from last time you played us?
Absolutely nobody.
I thought you'd say that.
I mean, I recognise names, but no one from that team. Yeah. So yeah, very, very different side. And we'll talk about individual players and the actual side itself, the way you're playing. I mean, Chris Wilder has maintained himself in that position as your manager. I mean, when you look at the recent results, you've got a win against Watford, a win against Hull most recently, and 2 draws against Norwich and QPR. I mean, to start the season, and the table does kind of give that false sense of where you should be because of obviously, as you alluded to earlier, with off the field matters. You've got that point deduction that's just meant that you're just outside from where you should be. But I mean, from the most recent results, where are Sheffield United in terms of maybe the expectations you guys had from the recruitment you managed to do? Where are you guys in terms of, in your mind, in the league table and the recent results you've had?
I did a preview video about where Sheff United would finish. And I get a lot of stick anyway, as much as sort of Elon Musk on Twitter. And this was one of the ones I got the most for, because I really predicted Sheff United would have a really good season, finish above Leeds. And that's where most of the hate came from. But I maintain that. And actually, were it not for that 2-point deduction for not being able to pay for all the players that we'd signed previously, which again was all to do with the takeover. Just don't get me started. We could talk about that for another hour. We'd have 11 points, and we would be where I believe we should be. I really do think we'll finish in the automatic promotion places, and I think we're that good. And I think the recruitment's been excellent. I always thought it would be. I'm really pleased. There isn't a single player we've brought in that I haven't thought that's a good signing. I like all of them, even the fringe players like Sam Callum, Jamie Shackleton. I like these additions. These are sensible additions. It's quite a thin squad. I'm worried about goals. Kiefer Moore has only got 1 goal in that game against QPR, a match we drew, a match we should have won. I mean, there are mysteries that have never been solved, particularly at the bottom of the ocean. What do we know about that? Probably more than we know about how Sheffield United didn't win this game, because it really was unreal. I don't think I've ever seen a team dismantle another side so much as we did in that first half. And then second half, chalk and cheese, and QPR were much, much better, and actually in the end deserved a draw. But I'm still annoyed about that one. It still rankles. We should have got 3 points. Norwich was fair. And Preston, we played really well first game and won that one. So should be higher. 2 points annoys me. We should be at least top.
Well, when you look at it, I mean, we look at normally previous games with each other. I mean, we've just alluded to how long that's been, but looking at the most recent game in what you had against Hull City, 2-0 win on Sky, everyone was watching, and some of the players that you kind of pick out there that you mentioned that you've managed to recruit with the budget that you've had, and all, like you said, all the off-field matters that we could discuss for hours on end. Some individual names there that stick out to me: seasoned championship players, Callum, Hare, Keith and Moore, Raksaki on loan from Crystal Palace, very, very good player, Gilchrist. I mean, you've managed to keep Armin Hosic somehow, which in my opinion, is one of the best central defenders in the league. Just talk to me about some of the key players that you've managed to bolster, that Chris Wilder's managed to put it together this season, and really have hit the ground running really, really well.
Well, you've mentioned the key players there. There's one perhaps I would have added, which is Harrison Burrows. And that is because the assists, the goals, you don't often get that from a left back. And this guy is going to be one of the best left backs we've ever had. Sheffield United have never famously had good left backs. When you try and list Sheffield United's best left backs of all time, it's a short list and a small pool. Ender Stevens will win that for many, and then Wayne Quinn, and that's pretty much it. I've got a feeling Harrison Burrows will end up being the next player we talk about like that. Harry Souttar is a very shrewd addition and a lethal combination of him and Ahmedhodzic at the back, because set pieces, that's just terrifying, both defending and attacking for any opposition. And it feels like Souttar's going to win everything in the air. I haven't seen those two misplace a pass. It allows Anel to come forward, because he isn't a traditional centre-back. He's a marauding centre-back because he's so good technically and with his feet. And you may be aware, he won't be popular with Derby County fans, as he started his career at Nottingham Forest, as most lads who play for Bosnia and born in Malmo do.
Yeah.
But actually, just to finish this, the two players to actually look out for are products of our own youth system. Oliver Arblaster, who I believe will play for England, and Andre Brooks. If Andre Brooks starts, he's got wheels for feet. He is so skillful. He's left-footed. He's usually now playing on the right, which in pre-season I thought Chris Wilder was doing to make a point to the board. Like, I need wingers. But actually, it's really worked. Last season, he was playing on the left-hand side of the centre of three and across the middle. Now he's playing right wing. And you know what? Wherever we've put him, he's looked really good.
He has. And, I mean, you mentioned Arblaster there. I'm a massive fan of Arblaster. Just talk to me about him, I mean, and his journey through Sheffield United's ranks. I mean, why is he, in your opinion, set for England? I mean, that's even some target for a young lad coming from the academy ranks through Sheffield United.
Well, I've seen what it takes to play for England coming through Sheff United's ranks because I've watched Kyle Walker, I've watched Harry Maguire, Gary Cahill played for us as well. I've seen also David Brooks, who obviously played for Wales, or previously did play for England youth setup. And had it not been for lymphoma, I think he would only have gone on to achieve even more. He's one of the most exciting youngsters. So I put him in that kind of category. And the thing is that he's different in that he's one of those players that gives everything. So fans instantly warm to him. He was actually with Sheff United back in 2021 when we last played Derby. I know you're thinking, like, who on earth was still involved then? Well, our blaster, but he wasn't anywhere near the first team because he was too young. But he's a proper fan. I've been to games and Ollie's been behind me. And we've had chats. This guy's a proper Sheff United fan. So by that, he just gives and bleeds red and white and will sweat for the badge. If he gives the ball away, he'll do everything he can to win it back. He's a crunching tackler, but he's also technically very, very skillful. Got a great first touch. He can ping it. He can play the short, simple pass. He can take pop shots from long range. Scored our first goal of the season. There just aren't players necessarily like this every day that you see. Sometimes you watch a midfielder that can frustrate you, that particularly when we were in the Premier League last season, the fancy Dan midfielders that will pull out of a tackle, that don't fancy it when the going gets a little bit tough. Ollie isn't like that, but he can also do the silky stuff. So that's rare. And for a player like that to come through Sheff United's youth setup, well, it's really exciting.
Yeah, and he's fitted tremendously well within the Chris Wilder system. I mean, looking at no particular app in the last game that you played, but it looks like you're playing a 4-4-1-1. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's right.
But how has Chris Wilder approached home and away games? Are we going to see, because you're away at Hull City and they had a lot of the ball in terms of stats. You very much sat there, but you've come out the other end with a 2-0 win and were very, very clinical in the chances you made. But how are Derby fans going to see a Sheffield United team at Bramall Lane this weekend? Does Chris Wilder flip it on its head and go more offensive? But just talk to us about how you're going to attack this one, do you reckon?
Well, Callum, I think you hit the nail on the head. If this was a game at Derby County, we would be soaking up possession and saying, you can play around with it, have some fun. No, we'll take that.
We don't do that one. We don't do that.
That's the way we've approached the Norwich game and the Hull game. And maybe he did that because of the way those teams play. I think when we play Sheffield Wednesday, God, I'm terrified about that. We'll probably let them have a lot of the ball. That's just the way that he's going to do it, because we learn in the Premier League, if these teams want to have possession, let them have possession and then pick them off. And we didn't do that particularly successfully. Although I will say, if people watch some of our games last season, actually watch them and don't just watch the match of the day highlights. You watch our game at Newcastle first half, and you watch our game at Palace, you watch our game at Luton. You will see that actually we did play some pretty good stuff and we just couldn't defend. And we've sorted that now. And he sorted that by changing. Chris Wilder was famous for the overlapping centre-backs, the 3 at the back. He's gone 4 at the back. This is not unheard of territory, but it's unusual territory. And it's working. And Harrison Burrows, really solid, who I've mentioned. Alfie Gilchrist looking like a centre-back playing right-back, because that's what he is, but it's made him solid. And we don't need him to bomb forward all the time, because we've got Brooks, we've got Jesser and Raksaki, and these guys will do enough if they're playing on that right and with their left feet.
Well, that's it. And that back four, I mean, last season, probably not all, like you said, not all the same players, but they're not facing Haaland, they're facing Jerry Yates. I mean, is Derby a team that you're worried about facing? Are any players in particular that have jumped off the page when you've looked at Derby County and the way that we've started? Don't get me wrong, we're very, very happy with the way we are, but we are now coming to the point where we're playing teams like yourselves who have come down from the Premier League, and this is going to be a real test for Paul Warne and the Rams. But from yourself, Hal, are there any Derby players that might cause some issues for Sheffield United this weekend?
I mean, Ben Osborne, what a legend.
Yes. I thought his name might come up.
I absolutely love him. He was one of my favourite players at Sheff United. We've got a few connections, of course, over the years. So many players have played for both. I mean, even in your current ranks, you've got Connor Washington, who played for Sheffield United, I think.
Yeah.
If he's Nathaniel Mendez-Lang was on loan at Sheff United. And obviously Ben Osborne. I can't think of too many others. But over the years, loads. I mean, not a player that worries me as such, but when I watched him, cash-in was always impressive. But, I speak to some Derby fans. I got a lot of friends who support Derby because I went to university in Staffordshire, and it was just full of Stoke and Derby County fans. And they have been talking to me about some players that I thought were really, really good for Derby, and have said, maybe you're seeing them slightly differently because we're not so sure. And Cashin Amazing was one of those players, and I was very, very surprised to hear that. I thought this is a guy that's only going to go one way career trajectory. I think you've got some good players on loan, and I think we should probably keep an eye out on some of those. Ozo, Phillips. I like Curtis Nelson if he's going to be involved. Always a player that I always bought on Football Manager. That's usually enough. And also, you mentioned Jerry Yates, another player that's on loan. I think you're going to be fine this season. I'm not surprised with the start. 9 points doesn't surprise me at all. I do think this will be a tough game though, away from home. I think if this was at your place, we'd be talking about this in a very, very different way.
Yeah, I mean, do you reckon that, or what do you reckon could be a weakness that Derby could exploit that you've seen in the opening few games from the Sheffield United side? What's caused problems? And maybe not in terms of result, but in terms of in the game that you've kind of seen and gone, if someone's taken their opportunities, we could be in trouble here.
Our left-hand side worries me because Harrison Burrows likes to get forward and Gus Harmer doesn't want to play on the left wing. So Gus drifts in and then you've left a gap there. And then Harrison has to go and fill that. Well, then left back's empty. So then you drag a centre-back across. Well, then the middle's empty and you've only got Anel there or Harry Suter. And then Alfie Gilchrist will come across and then suddenly the right's exposed and you don't get support and you don't get tracking back from Jezza Raksaki. I mean, I did a preview piece recently with a Charlton fan who saw Jezza Raksaki and said that he's learned, his game has improved and he's starting to track back more. I need to see more of it. So I would say actually attacking the fullback areas is probably what I would do if I was in Derby's shoes. And that's the area that concerns me. But also for a Sheff United point of view, I'm really worried if you score first because we don't really seem like we've got a lot of goals in our team. And the goals that we do have in our team are coming from non-repeatable actions. By that, I mean wonder goals. Or weird goals or goalkeeping mistakes and then Gus Harmer firing it straight back in. We're not scoring regularly team goals. Now, against Hull, we did. But they actually came, whilst they were really good moves, they actually came from Hull's corners. Now, you can't be relying on that either because not every team's going to have 16 corners against you. And with those 16, we try to attack them every time, breaking from their terrible corners. But that's not always going to happen. So I want to see in-game passing and flowing moves that lead to chances for Kiefer Moore. And I'm not seeing enough of that. So I'm worried about that.
But, I mean, at the moment, you started the season well with the team that we've mentioned has been put together by Chris Wilder with the resources that he's got. As a Sheffield United fan watching this season, what's your expectations for Sheffield United and the Blades this season? I mean, is promotion in the mind of yourself, or do you reckon with the situation of the club that has just dampened it a little bit? Or in the way we've started, you're all guns blazing and we're going straight back up?
I am concerned about what's going on at board level because we just don't know what's going to happen. Come January, is our current owner still going to be our current owner? Do we want our current owner to still be our current owner? Well, that you can't answer because we don't know who the new consortium is. So you don't know. It's sometimes it's better the devil you know, as the old saying goes. And sometimes it's better to take a risk. And I have no idea where I sit on this. So I'm very concerned about that because change is not good, as we all believe. Anyone in the north knows that. So it can be quite concerning. So I don't know. I don't want it to derail it. And I've seen it happen before. I remember back in the 90s when we had a really, really good side and we started under Nigel Spackman just like a train. And then our board kept selling the players under us and then the board changed and we just fell away, ended up losing in the playoffs. And I could see that happening again if something went wrong at the top. And also if the takeover falls apart, could that be such a huge blow to our current owner because he wants to sell? That actually says, I don't know if I can keep funding this, and then January comes and we can't make additions and we could get injuries. So all of that means that whilst I want to say we're going to finish in the top two, and I do believe that, it's such a thin squad that if we take any serious injuries, particularly up the top, like if Kiefer Moore got injured, let's say worst case scenario for the rest of the season, we're relying on Ryan Brewster. And Ryan Brewster has not scored goals at Sheffield United. We're relying on Tyrese Campbell. who some Stoke fans have said is great. And then you don't need to look at his Wikipedia and you'll see he's a striker who's never scored more than 9 goals in a season. So I'm concerned.
Yeah, but I mean, we've started well, both teams, and it's going to be a cracking game. I'm sure, as you mentioned, it might be nervy. It could be not a pretty watch, but it could be a very entertaining game nonetheless. How I'm going to ask you the very, very important question. What is your prediction going into this game? What's your score prediction? If you have got any scorers for Sheffield United, what's your scorers?
Right. Well, Ben Osborne to score for Derby. And do you know what? I want Ben Osborne to score and I want us to win. And that would make me really happy. And Ben being such a great guy, I don't think he'd do any celebration either. I think which I don't mind if he does. I think it's pathetic when players don't celebrate against their former clubs. Go for it, mate. You're a Derby fan. Rip your shirt off. I don't care. But I want the Blades to win. And so I want him to smile and then to be crying. So I'll say 2-1 Blades.
2-1 Blades. I'll go reverse. Then I'll go reverse, and I'll go Osborne. Go on. Then I'll get him. Let's get him a brace. Why not? Let's get him a brace and see what he does. Let's see what he does.
Hey, do you know what? Get him on set pieces. We very rarely got him on set pieces. He's so good at corners and free kicks.
He is. He's one of our corner takers, and with those injury against Cardiff, he's more than likely going to start. So he's going to be interesting how he's receptive by the Blades fans. I'm hoping nice, because I think he's he did well for you guys. But as a Derby fan, I think he'll want to at least get on the score sheet if he can and open his account. But how it's been great. I mean, what we like to do for away fans, and I did mention this briefly before we came on live, but we like to do an away fan guide, best away pubs, where to park, anything we like to go and see in Sheffield. But you mentioned that you're not the most local of people nowadays, but I mean, you're in Cyprus at the moment. I am going to ask you this in the nicest way, but
I'll do my
you
best.
Give any Derby fans some tips ahead of travelling ahead to Sheffield this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I always used to drive, and I used to park in either the Mecca Bingo car park or the station. And if you get in the train, obviously you'll already be at the train station, but you can park there as well. And it's a little walk. It's not a bad walk. You'll go past several pubs. A lot of the pubs in the area are home fans only. I'm sorry about that. I don't make the rules. I don't know if Panenka Bar and Grill would have away fans, or if you just don't wear a shirt, who knows? But they're brilliant, and they'll look after fans, and they're very welcoming, and that's stone's throw from Bramall Lane and a nice walk. So that would be a good one, and hopefully the weather's nice, because it is nice to walk around Sheffield. I mean, I really love the walk from the train station to Bramall Lane, and as I say.
Well, as I say, we've been contacted by Hallam FC, who is the world's oldest ground, if you didn't know. And as Hal mentioned, it's probably not an easy place to go and find somewhere to drink, but they have contacted us to say that they are open to Derby fans from noon this Saturday. It's a little bit of a walk, but there is parking available, and they're sure to be very appealing. And for those who are interested in football history, they are a very, very interesting place to go and park if you need someone. But Hal, I really appreciate your time, and I think it's going to be an interesting one this weekend. I think it will. But for anyone who has listened and has enjoyed, please do leave a like. If you didn't enjoy, please don't. But please subscribe. Where can they find you if we have got any Sheffield United fans listening to us ramble on for the last 20 odd minutes?
Well, even if we haven't got any Sheffield United fans, we do interviews with former players. We've got some former Derby County players that we've spoken to. So if you want to see interviews, I mean, the likes of Paul Pesky-Solido. So if you want to check out Sheff United Way, we've got an audio podcast and we've got a YouTube channel, and you can see some interviews with some former Rams. We've had so many. John Brayford, another one just off the top of my head. There's quite a few in there.
Perfect. And as I say, thank you very much for coming on, and we'll see what happens this weekend. Thanks, Al.